Hello and welcome to Therapy Thursday with Donna. So today we're going to be looking at worry, which is a topic that you messaged me about after my video a couple of weeks ago when I asked what you would ask a therapist and what questions you had about mental health and things that you wanted to have some help with. So worry was one of those where I had two different questions, but I'm going to bring them into the same video today. So I had two questions. One was, doesn't worry help me cope? So worry is not a bad thing, right? Worry helps me cope. So that's one thing I'm going to look at later. But the first one is, how do I stop worrying? So I'm going to give you three tips, three strategies to try with your worry when you're trying to stop worrying. When you want to stop worrying and you can't. And usually this happens at night time, doesn't it? I have it myself, where we have something going round and round in our head and you can't switch off from it. And before you know it, you find it really hard to sleep, you're really keyed up, and it's just impossible then, isn't it? So what I'm saying there is, I guess, is that there is actually a chaining effect where it gets worse the longer that you let that process happen, or the longer that you have that process happen. You're not doing it deliberately, are you? Letting it happen. It just does, and it snowballs. It has its own snowballing effect, doesn't it? And it becomes very hard to switch off from. So what are the three strategies for dealing with worry? So they are noticing, categorizing and scheduling. So noticing, categorizing and scheduling. So there's three strategies there. So how do you put them into practice and what are they? Right, so the first one is just noticing that you are worrying. So this is quite hard. I would say be kind on yourself and don't give yourself a hard time. If you find that you're quite far down the chain of worrying at night time, say, you're just really keyed up, you can't switch off, you can't sleep, and you think, yeah, I'm worrying, but I can't do anything about it now, can I? Well, just notice that you're worrying and say that to yourself. So notice and label it. So, okay, I'm worrying about something, aren't I? Notice and label. That's the first step. And your aim with that one is to try to notice a little bit earlier each time. And this is a process, it takes time, but you will be able to notice a little bit earlier and a little bit earlier. And the more you can notice the worrying coming into your mind earlier, the more control you're going to have over what you do with it. So don't give yourself a hard time, but just aim to notice when you're worrying. You might find that you have times, especially at night time, if you're anything like me, when you are more likely to worry. So use that. You know you're more likely to worry at those times, so look out for it. And when you notice a worry, tell yourself, I'm worrying. How do you know if you're worrying? What is a worry? A worry is a what if thought, isn't it? It's a thought about something that might happen, and you are thinking about what you're going to do about it if that thing were to happen, or a problem that's currently happening for you and you're thinking through strategies for how to deal with it. That is worrying, isn't it? So it's future focused thinking about what to do if, or what to do with a scenario so that what you fear might happen doesn't happen. So you're preparing for the worst usually, isn't it? So worries are what if thoughts. They're thoughts about, oh, what if that happens? Oh, I need to make sure I do this if that happens. So you're kind of worrying about something that might happen. So when you notice yourself doing that, the first thing is tell yourself that you're doing it. So, oh, I'm worrying about that. The next step is categorizing. You're worrying about that. What's the that? What is it that you're worrying about? Is this something that you can do something about right now? So, can I do anything about this? Is the question to ask yourself there. If the answer is yes, is that right now? Or is that something you need to do something about tomorrow? So you tell yourself, yeah, that's something I can do something about, and I'm going to do such and such a thing tomorrow. So I'm going to answer that email tomorrow morning when I open up my emails. I'm going to make it my priority to deal with this one first. So what you're doing is you're telling yourself, yeah, this is something I can do something about, and you're scheduling when you're going to do it. So you're categorizing the type of worry into something that you can do something about, and you're scheduling, you're making an action plan for when you're going to do that. If you categorize it as something that you can't do anything about, or you can't do anything about until such and such a date in the future when you get more information. Hospital appointments, for example, are a good example of this, aren't they? We might worry that we're going to be told something horrible after having a test done, and that anxiety is normal. But we might worry about, oh yeah, but what if it's this, and what if it's that, and what if it's that? And actually, you can't do anything until you have your appointment where you find out your test results. So that's a really good example of categorizing that worry into something you can't do anything about, or at least until you have that appointment. So you tell yourself, you know, this is something I can't do anything about right now until I have that appointment. So in that sense, you schedule worry time for that one because it's something you care about. It's something you're anxious about. You can't do anything about it until you get more information. But I'm going to ask you to schedule worry time for that concern that you have. So you're going to give it some space and you're going to give it some time to worry about. That might sound a bit counterintuitive, but your mind's thinking about this. It cares about it. It's worrying about it for a reason. So let's give it space at a time when we're not trying to sleep in the middle of the night. So for that one, you're going to schedule worry time. And I would say to do that not at night time, not first thing in the morning, not just before you go to bed, but say just after dinner or just before dinner. Give yourself 15 minutes or half an hour if you've got quite a lot, and sit down and worry about this thing that you're concerned about. Do a breathing exercise before and a breathing exercise after you've given it some real good worry. You know, just feel free to worry, think about all the things that might happen. Make sure you're balancing that out with things that might happen that are quite neutral and positive, just as much as the negative, but really give yourself space to worry. So if you categorize your worry as something you can do something about, schedule a time when you're going to do that thing, make an action plan in other words, and do it. If it's something you can't do anything about, let it go for that moment because you can't do anything about it. But importantly, schedule some worry time so that you're going to actually allow yourself to think about this. So what you'll be doing there is you'll be telling your mind that you are going to think about it, and it doesn't have to think about that right now in the middle of the night when you're trying to sleep. The important thing here is that when you schedule that worry time or that action plan for something that you can do something about, you need to do it, because if you put it off, your mind will know that you've put it off and it will bounce back, won't it, when you are not busy, which is usually at night time when we're trying to sleep. That's when it will bounce back. But again, don't give yourself a hard time. If that happens, then just do the same thing and tell yourself, I'm going to deal with that tomorrow in my worry time, or I'm going to deal with that email tomorrow morning. Okay, so you've got the 3 strategies there for worry. The first one is notice and label. So noticing that you're worrying, I'm worrying about such and such. And then the categorizing. So I'm worrying about this, which is something that I can't do anything about right now, so I'm going to give it some worry time tomorrow when I'm really going to thrash it out. Or I'm worrying about this email that I need to rehearse in my mind before I send, so I can't do that right now, but I'm going to do that in the morning. So you're noticing, you're categorizing the worry, and you're scheduling time when you're going to deal with it. And those are the 3 strategies. Now, it takes time to get over the habit of just letting worries free float in your mind, but when you've got something you can actually do with them, it makes you feel more in control of them. So the first step's just noticing that you're doing it. So see how you get on with that, and then start to categorise, are these hypotheticals I can't do anything about, or are they things that are current problems but I just need to make an action plan and do it, deal with them. Okay, so make sure you do those action plans or worry time, because if you procrastinate and you put off, that's a form of avoidance, and actually what you'll be doing then is you'll be setting up for yourself a loop of the worry bouncing back and you avoiding doing that thing, so the worry's going to come up in your mind and you avoid doing that thing. So the action plan's important there. In other words, overcoming that avoidance to worry time or avoidance to taking action. So there's your 3 strategies for worry. Now the other aspect, the other question or comment that I had was, yeah, worry helps me cope, doesn't it? So if I prepare for the worst, then at least I've prepared. And I can see why you would say that, because I used to do that quite a lot. I think that was one of my coping strategies. You know, prepare for the worst and then you're prepared, aren't you? But what I want to tell you about is something that can happen in your mind when you do that. So you start off with your problem solving, aren't you? Trying to think through the issues. So what am I going to do if that happens? What will I do if that happens? So I need to put that in place if this is to happen. Now, somewhere along the line, that normal problem solving gets hijacked into worry, because it mixes in with our anxiety about what might happen and the things that we don't want to happen. And when that anxiety gets triggered, we will get another anxious thought about what might happen. Because when we feel anxious, our thoughts become worst case scenario, catastrophic thoughts about what might happen. So you can get caught in a loop quite easily. And I guess that's okay, because if you can notice that you're doing that, you can take yourself out of it, can't you? So if you notice that you're going down a, oh, what if, and with each what if, you have a little bit more anxiety with each what if, which can get to a place where you feel like, oh God, it's just gonna be so awful, I'm not gonna be able to cope, which is the opposite of what you wanted, because you wanted to feel prepared, but actually you've ended up feeling so anxious, so worried about what might happen that you don't feel able to cope. So noticing what's happening for you, and notice if you're going down the what if route, because that means you have moved out of problem solving and into worry. If you notice that, just pull yourself back by saying, hang on, I'm just worrying about the worst case scenario here, aren't I? Which might be an outcome, but what you need to do is you need to balance that out with all the neutral stuff, all the potentially positive things too, but importantly neutral. So this might happen, that might happen also, and that might happen. I don't really know, but there's lots of eventualities. I don't know when they're going to happen. All I can do is look at my coping skills, my strategies. So I know I will do this or do that or do that. I will talk to someone, I will find out further information. So what you do is you just look at your coping skills. Tell yourself, if that were to happen, I'd cope with it. But actually, importantly, just pull back that what if process and think about all the shades of grey that might happen too. So you're pulling yourself back from only looking at the worst case scenario. So yes, worry can help you cope, but not if you're only looking at the negative that might happen. And I think that's not always an intentional process. You don't mean to only look at the negative sometimes, but when you start getting anxiety triggered, your thoughts will naturally become more worst case scenario. So if you just notice that and say, yeah, because I'm feeling anxious, I'm only seeing the worst case here, but that's not the only eventuality. What you can do at that moment, I always find helpful, is to just bring yourself back into your body and how you're feeling physically, because you can get so ramped up in this process that you can be tense, and it just can be an all-consuming feeling of irritability or anxiety. So just pause the process, Notice how you're feeling, notice any tension in your body, do some deep breathing. Just reset and bring yourself back to the moment, back to the present, being mindful of how you're feeling right now. Then think about the problem. What can I do about that right now? Nothing right now, but maybe I could phone someone, talk to someone tomorrow. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. So now what you're doing is you're just pausing, bringing yourself back to the moment, and there you're able to notice what's the thing I'm actually thinking about here and what can I do about it, and schedule when you're going to do that and do it. I hope that's been helpful for you. Worry is an important topic and it's one of those that comes up quite a lot. It's quite a big topic, it's quite complex in its own way. If you've got any questions about worry or comments, that would be great. It'd be great to hear from you and how you deal with worry, because I think we've all got our own strategies in some ways as well, because it's a common and very normal thing to do. We're going to worry about things we care about. If we are going through situations that make us anxious, like exams, or we're preparing for an interview, we are going to be worried. It is normal, so don't give yourself a hard time. Okay, so that's it for today. A little bit about worry for you in those 3 strategies of notice, categorize, and schedule. Hope that's been helpful. Have a lovely rest of Thursday and good rest of the week, and I'll see you next week for Therapy Thursday. Take care and be kind.